Hello friends. About 70% of the friends who watch my videos are not subscribed, and I would be very happy if you did. Also, don't forget to press the like button and leave your comments. Your interaction makes the content reach everyone and contributes to the growth of the channel. Thank you all. From which country or city do you follow the channel? Hey, Alex, why not just sell the damn house then? Jake asked his buddy, who was gripping the steering wheel of their beat-up Ford pickup as they cruised down the highway. Jake, man, if I'm being straight with you, I don't even have a solid answer for that, Alex replied, keeping his eyes locked on the road stretching ahead. Back when I was a scrappy teenager, I'd haul up to Pine Hollow to see Grandma and Grandpa almost every summer, and those were some real good times. After Grandma passed away, it was just Grandpa rattling around in that old creaky place. Dad used to make the trip up there all the time, checking in, fixing stuff up, you know how he was. But then, out of nowhere, everything flipped fast. I got blindsided by this whirlwind teenage romance, head over heels stuff, and didn't set foot in that little town for a couple of years. Then the army called me up and shipped me off. Grandpa kicked the bucket while I was still in uniform, stuck halfway across the state. Mom was tied up on some work trip in Savannah, so Dad had to handle all the messy details solo, like the funeral and paperwork. I remember calling him up when he got back to Atlanta, asking how it all went down in Pine Hollow. He was vague as hell, brushing it off quick, trying to bury the whole topic. When I finally got discharged, I pitched this idea to Dad, saying, "Hey, let's take a guy's trip up there, fish at Lake Hudson, shoot the breeze, just you and me." He cut me off cold, voice sharp, saying there's nothing worth doing out there and that we could cast a line somewhere closer, like Lake Lanier, to save the hassle. It's weird as hell though, because it's his house, you know? Alex went on, scratching at the stubble sprouting on his chin. He grew up in that creaky old shack and lived there his whole damn life until he packed up and moved to the city with Mom. He always went on about how Pine Hollow held his warmest memories, calling them the best days of his life. But I threw it out there once, asking, "Dad, if it's just sitting there collecting dust, why not sell it off?" He got this far-off look in his eyes and said it ought to stay standing as a memory, a piece of his past worth keeping. Every single time I tried coaxing him into a trip back, maybe a weekend to fix the sagging porch or something, he'd dodge it hard and tell me there's no reason for me to waste my time out there either. Oh, and get this, he's got no clue we're headed up there right now. Last week, when Memorial Day weekend started peeking around the corner, me and you, two young dudes who are co-workers from the warehouse and best pals, decided to ditch the Atlanta grind and get some fresh country air. I tossed out the idea of hitting up Pine Hollow, my old stomping grounds from way back. Truth is, I've been itching to roll back into that sleepy little town for a while now, just to see what's left of it. That country house pops into my head every so often, you know? Alex said, his voice softening a bit as he glanced at Jake. I always loved kicking around there as a kid, running wild in the woods, swimming in the creek, the whole carefree deal. But after the army, life hit me fast with a new job, rent, and bills piling up high, so I couldn't carve out the time to go back. Plus, Dad was always dead set against it whenever I even hinted at a trip up north to Pine Hollow. Going by myself never felt right either. For one, it's a solid trek, half a day's drive up Route 441 from Atlanta, winding through those twisty Georgia backroads. And two, it'd be dull as dirt solo with no one to crack a beer with or swap old stories. But now everything's lining up perfect. We threw our bags together, stocked the cooler with enough sandwiches and brews to last us through, and set out to kick back hard, really let loose like we deserve. We rolled into Pine Hollow just as the sun dipped below the tall pines, though dusk doesn't quite cover the spooky-ass scene that greeted us when we pulled off the main drag onto those quiet streets. Did they cut the power grid or what? Alex muttered, squinting at the pitch-black houses lining Main Street as they parked. They'd pulled the truck up to the edge of town, headlights slicing through the dark, and it seemed those beams were the only light for miles around. Not a single street lamp buzzed to life, and not a flicker glowed in any window. "Probably," Jake said, leaning against the dashboard with a casual shrug. "I read somewhere that rural counties like this kill the lights at night to save cash, shutting off the juice for a few hours to keep the bills low." "Yeah, but it's only 10 p.m., man," Alex shot back, checking his watch with a frown. "Whatever, screw the lights. because we gotta find the house before we're fumbling around blind out here. They eased the truck forward, tires crunching over loose gravel, moving slow so they wouldn't miss the turnoff to the old Carter place. Alex stared out the window, brow furrowed, because everything looked off, like some forgotten ghost town from a cheap horror flick. A couple of houses gaped back at them with shattered windows, dark and hollow as empty skulls. Man, Alex said, craning his neck to take it all in. It's been ages since I rolled through here, and this place looks way different now. It's just the dark playing tricks, Jake said, brushing it off easy. It'll look normal come morning light. Hope you're right, Alex replied, voice dropping low. Oh, hang on. I think this is it. Right up ahead. Stepping out of the truck, the guys shivered and pulled their jackets tighter around them against the odd chill. Something about the night air felt wrong, thick, clingy, and unsettling as hell to both of them. The breeze drifting in from the dense woods wrapping Pine Hollow was damp and weighed heavy on their lungs, practically shoving them toward the house fast. They flicked on their phone flashlights, beams bouncing as they trudged up to the front door and wrestled with the rusty lock for a moment before it finally gave way with a groan of protest. Inside, the air hit them with a faint whiff of dust and stale time, like the place hadn't been touched in years. Alex flicked the light switch by the door, but nothing happened, dead as a doornail. All right, he said, shaking his head in frustration. Let's hustle and grab our gear from the truck real quick, then I'll dig around for that old kerosene lamp Grandpa used to keep stashed somewhere. Should be in the shed out back if it's still there. Once they'd hauled the bags and cooler inside, Alex bolted out to the shed, boots thudding on the packed dirt path. 5 minutes later, he trudged back in, face twisted in annoyance. Found the lamp, he said, holding up the dented old thing for Jake to see. But there's no damn kerosene anywhere. How the hell are we supposed to get settled in this pitch-black hole now? Listen, how about we knock on a neighbor's door? Alex suggested, rubbing his hands together to shake off the creeping chill. It's not that late, so someone's got to be awake still. They might hook us up with some kerosene if we ask nice and explain ourselves. Worth a shot, Jake agreed, nodding toward the house next door with a quick tilt of his head. Alex stepped back outside, phone flashlight carving a shaky path through the gloom as he headed over cautiously. The neighbor's fence was a mess, with half the pickets sagging or lying busted in the overgrown yard. The silence pressed in hard. No barking dogs, no crickets, just dead quiet all around them. Weird as hell that no mutts are losing their minds out here, Alex thought, unease prickling the back of his neck. He rapped on the door lightly. Nothing stirred. He knocked louder, fist thumping the weathered wood with more force. Hey, anybody home? He called out. Just need a little neighborly help over here. Still no answer came back. Annoyed, he hammered harder, and the door creaked open on its own with the first solid hit. Hello? He said, quieter now, peering inside the dark gap. Anyone around at all? The darkness swallowed his voice whole. Shining his light ahead, he edged into the entryway, old floorboards creaking under his boots. Then, a faint rustle sounded, barely there. Alex froze, heart kicking up a notch. Hey, sorry for just walking in like this, he called into the void, trying to keep his tone light and friendly. I'm your neighbor who rolled into the old Carter place down the street just now. Nothing but silence answered him back from the shadows. Then he caught it again, something shifting and scratching around in a room down the hall like a restless animal. Flashlight steady in his grip, he pushed forward, boots scuffing the dusty floor beneath him. Just looking to borrow some kerosene if you've got any to spare, he said, loud and clear, not wanting anyone to peg him for a burglar creeping in the dark. I can pay cash right now, no problem at all. He stepped over the threshold into a big, open room and stopped dead in his tracks. The beam of his flashlight landed square on a table smack in the center of the space. Sitting on it was a goddamn coffin, real as anything he'd ever seen. Hands folded neat and stiff over the chest blocked the face, but Alex didn't need to see it because his pulse slammed into overdrive instantly. Spinning around, he bolted, slamming into door frames, tripping over junk, tearing out of there in a blind, breathless panic, desperate to get the hell away. Bursting out into the night, Alex sprinted down the street, fear clawing at his throat, legs pumping like mad to carry him away. He hit the porch of his house and yanked the door handle, but it was locked tight from the inside. "Jake!" he shouted, pounding the wood with his open palm hard enough to sting his hand. "Open the damn door, man! It's me! Move it quick!" He kept hammering away, throwing wild glances over his shoulder like the corpse next door might stumble out after him any second now. "Alex, that you?" Jake's voice filtered through, muffled and tense from behind the door. "Yeah, it's me. Open it. Quick!" Alex yelled, slamming his foot against the bolt for good measure. The door flew open wide, and he stumbled inside, shoving it shut behind him and leaning hard against it, chest heaving fast. "Why the hell do you lock it?" he gasped, trying to pull himself together after the scare. Jake paused and scratched his neck awkwardly. "Well," Alex pressed, still winded from the run. "Look, man, after you took off," Jake started, "I was digging into my bag, and the door slammed shut out of nowhere. Thought you'd come back fast, so I went to check, but nobody was there. Freaked me out a little, so I locked it up tight. What's got you so rattled? Did you score the kerosene?" "Kerosene?" Alex half laughed, shaky. "Man, I nearly crapped out my soul. Went next door, and there's a guy laid out in a coffin with the house dark as a grave, just him lying there, stiff as a board." "What? They just leave dead folks out like that around here?" Jake said, eyes wide, voice cracking with disbelief as he stared at Alex. "Hell if I know what's normal in this freaking town." Alex snapped back, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "I'm not stepping 1 foot outside again tonight because I'm done wandering around this creepy-ass place. Let's just cool off, crash here till morning hits, and figure out what's what when the sun's up over the pines. We can sleep without unpacking all our junk and deal with it tomorrow morning." "Yeah. Good luck catching any shut-eye after that little adventure," Jake muttered as Alex shuffled toward the living room, still rattled from the ordeal. They decided to bunk together since the old pull-out couch in there was wide enough if they shoved it open all the way. Too wiped to bother changing out of their jeans and hoodies, they flopped down hard on the lumpy mattress. Whether it was the long haul up Route 441 or the shock of that coffin staring him down, Alex passed out quick and Jake followed suit. Deep into the night, though, Alex jolted awake, feeling someone shaking his shoulder rough. He blinked hard into the dark, trying to focus, and saw nothing but inky black all around him. Sleep peeled off like a ripped bandage and was gone in a flash. Alex sat up fast, ears straining because he heard footsteps, real ones, creaking slow across the wooden floor somewhere in the house. "You hear that crap?" he whispered, nudging Jake, who was already awake and staring toward the window with a tight jaw. "Can't see squat," Jake hissed back, keeping his voice low and tense. "Been hearing it for a solid hour now, though, on and off like a broken record." Alex slid off the couch and crept over to the window, cracking it open just enough to stick his head out into the damp night air outside. "Who's out there messing around?" he called, louder than he meant to, voice cutting through the quiet. No answer came back, just the rustle of leaves in the breeze stirring the pines. First light crept in slow, with dawn's pale rays brushing the ceiling beams and sliding down the rough log walls of the old cabin. Jake stirred first, still sprawled out on the lumpy mattress, blinking as he took in the place, which was solid, old school, and not a scrap of modern drywall or trendy nonsense in sight. The whole setup screamed another era, with a vintage dresser with chipped paint, a wobbly-legged chest shoved in the corner, and a short wardrobe that looked like it had been hauled out of some Depression-era attic. Everything felt frozen in time, like stepping into Grandpa's old yarns about the good days. A sharp yell from outside snapped Alex awake too and yanked him out of a half-dream where he was a kid again. Jake shuffled over to the window, peering through the grimy glass at the street below. Some guy in overalls ambled by, whistling off-key like he didn't have a care. Alex rolled off the couch, joints popping loud, and joined him, rubbing sleep from his eyes with a groan. "See," Jake said, pointing out there with a nod. "Told you the night screws with your head because all that spooky vibe's gone now. Let's go poke around, ask someone about the power cutting out last night, and maybe that dead guy you stumbled on too." They stepped outside onto the sagging porch and got hit square in the face by the thick, earthy smell of cattle drifting over from a ranch just past the town line. "Phew," Jake grinned, fanning the air with his hand. That'll wake you up faster than a double shot of coffee. No kidding? Alex laughed, taking a deep breath of that funky farm air and letting it fill his lungs fully. In the daylight, they got to work unpacking and dragging bags inside while sorting through their fishing gear, rods, tackle boxes, and the works, planning a hike around Pine Hollow after they scarfed down some breakfast soon. Alex flipped the light switch in the kitchen just to test it, and bam, the bare bulb in the ceiling fixture buzzed to life, casting a weak yellow glow over the room. "Hell yeah," he said out loud, grinning to himself with a little nod. "Gotta remember to charge our phones too since the outlets are live now." They headed out around noon, stepping into the warm May sun shining bright. The town was alive with old-timers parked on porch swings, gossiping away, chickens clucking and scratching in dusty yards, and dogs yapping at every shadow that moved. Last night, it was dead quiet with no barking or nothing, Alex said, turning to Jake as they walked down Main Street leisurely. Where the hell were all these mutts hiding then? Jake just shrugged, hands stuffed in his pockets, not sure what to make of it at all. They passed a neighbor's gate when it swung open with a creak, and a guy stumbled out, looking rough with bloodshot eyes and hair a total mess. "Hey, sorry for your loss," Alex said, figuring it tied back to the coffin he'd seen last night. "Huh? What are you on about?" the man grunted, wincing as he rubbed his temples hard. "Got smashed with my buddy Billy last night, and my head's pounding like a damn drum. Barely remember stumbling home after that." "Who are you two anyway?" "Just pulled into town yesterday evening," Alex replied, sizing him up casually. "Been a while since I was last here, though." "Got it," the guy nodded, squinting in the sunlight that stabbed his eyes. "Name's Pete. Man, I could use a beer to shake this hangover, hair of the dog style, you know? You boys got anything cold on you?" he asked, turning half away like he was already over the chat and ready to shuffle off. "Don't mind if I do," Jake said, flashing a wide grin at the offer. "Hang on a sec." He jogged back to the truck parked down the street, popped the cooler in the bed, and fished out a couple of ice-cold buds before handing them over to Pete with a nod. "Hey, you got any kerosene lying around? Power's been flaky as hell here and caught us off guard last night big time." "Yeah, I've got some," Pete said, cracking open a bottle with a satisfying hiss. "Bring your lamp over, and I'll fill it up for you, no sweat at all." Jake darted back to the house, grabbed the dented old lamp from the kitchen table, and handed it off to Pete. Pete shuffled into his shed out back, bottle still in hand, moving slow. "Think we should ask him about that coffin I saw?" Alex whispered to Jake, leaning in close so no one else would hear. "Last night was freaky, but maybe I was just wiped out from the drive-up Route 441, hallucinating or something crazy." Pete ambled back out, handing over the lamp, which now sloshed with fuel when Alex shook it. "Yeah, the lights crap out sometimes around here," he said, taking a swig of beer casually. "We're used to stumbling around in the dark half the time since it's just part of the charm in Pine Hollow." They thanked him and stepped away from his sagging fence, heading back to finish unpacking their gear and slap together some lunch with peanut butter sandwiches and chips. After eating, they set out down Main Street, strolling toward Lake Hudson and eager to scope out the shore for some evening fishing later on. Alex waved at folks as they passed because some faces sparked hazy kid memories, not crystal clear, but familiar enough from summers long gone by. People nodded back, their stares lingering a little too long and sizing them up oddly. "Why re they gawking at us like we're aliens or something?" Jake asked, scratching his neck as they kept walking, boots kicking up dust on the dry road. "Beats me," Alex said, shrugging it off with a little laugh. "Guess small towns like Pine Hollow always get curious about outsiders rolling in. Fresh meat to gossip about over coffee." They reached the far end of town, and Jake threw a glance over his shoulder. A cluster of locals had bunched up near a porch, staring after them with hard, unfriendly eyes that didn't blink. He chalked it up to the place being cut off from the world, some backwoods quirk not worth dwelling on, and let it slide easy. Bunch of hillbillies, he thought, shoving the image out of his head quick. The lake shore opened up ahead, framed by tall pines, with a rickety wooden dock stretching out over the water, a prime spot to launch a boat later. They plopped down on the bank, kicking back relaxed, dreaming about the fish they'd snagged come dusk when the light faded. Then, out of nowhere, a splash broke the quiet and rippled out from the reeds on their left side. The reeds rustled hard, and a kid who looked about 20 stepped out, dripping wet from the lake water. He froze when he saw them, then cracked a big grin that split his face. "What kind of fish you got swimming in this thing?" Alex asked, nodding at the water with a curious tilt. The guy gave a stiff little wave, then lit up like a bulb suddenly. "Alex, holy crap, is that you?" He laughed, clapping a damp hand on Alex's shoulder with a wet smack. Alex squinted at him, brain churning fast because something about the face tugged at old memories, but it wouldn't click into place no matter how hard he tried. "Come on, Alex, don't tell me you forgot me because it's Tommy Ray," the kid said, beaming wide like they were long-lost pals. Alex dug through his head, scrambling to pin it down, but the age was off, way too young to be a buddy from those Pine Hollow summers way back when he was a kid. "Sorry, man. I'm coming up blank here," Alex said, scratching his jaw with a puzzled frown. "Used to come up from Atlanta to visit Grandpa, a big OL guy always cracking jokes and the center of every barbecue around here. You don't remember that time we got caught sneaking out past curfew and Grandpa tanned our hides with a willow switch?" Tommy chuckled, slapping his knee like it was the best story ever told. Alex forced a grin, but it flickered because then it hit him hard. "Oh yeah, damn, he laid into us good that day," he said, voice flattening out as the memory locked in clear. "Knew you'd get it eventually," Tommy crowed, totally missing the cold shiver crawling up Alex's spine as he stood there. "Yeah, I remember now," Alex said, faking it hard and trying to keep the unease out of his tone so it wouldn't show. "Look, Tommy, good seeing you, but we gotta bounce because we got the grill fired up back at the house and don't want to burn the place down." Alex lied quick, grabbing Jake's arm and tugging him away before the kid could respond at all. "Catch you later," Jake called back, throwing a wave as they booked it fast down the path. "Old pal, huh?" Could have shot the breeze a little longer with him. "What grill you talking about?" "Just keep moving," Alex hissed, voice tight with urgency. "Look back because he's still there." Jake glanced over his shoulder, and Tommy stood rooted by the lake, staring after them, unblinking and still as stone. "Yeah, he's watching all right. What's the deal with that?" "I had a friend named Tommy Ray," Alex said, picking up the pace along the dirt path winding back. "Back when I was a kid, the last summer I ever spent up here in Pine Hollow was with him. He drowned that year," Alex finished, his boots crunching faster on the gravel as they moved. "Hold up," Jake said, jogging to keep up with Alex's stride. "Maybe they fished him out, revived him or something, and you just never got the memo since you said yourself you hadn't been back?" "Jake, don't be a dumbass," Alex snapped, his voice cutting sharp through the air. "I saw him laid out in his coffin, white as a sheet, hands crossed, the whole damn deal. His mom was sobbing her eyes out, inconsolable, and half the town turned out to mourn him because he was a local kid, born and bred right here, not some city transplant like us." He stopped for a second, catching his breath, then pushed on quicker than before. "Something seriously messed up here, man. Maybe Dad had the right idea dodging this place like the plague because he was the last one from our family to set foot in Pine Hollow, years back now. Maybe he ran into something freaky back then too," Alex said, half to himself, staring down the empty street as they walked. "I don't know, Alex. This all sounds nuts, and I'm not buying it yet," Jake replied, shrugging his shoulders with a skeptical look. "That kid by the lake looked alive and kicking to me, not some ghost or whatever." "Oh yeah? What about the coffin I tripped over last night then?" Alex shot back, not letting it go easily. "But Pete was up and walking this morning, hungover but breathing just fine." Jake pushed, trying to reason it out logically. "Let's just hit the lake tonight, fish a little, then peel out of here at first light tomorrow morning. If it's got you this spooked, we won't stick around longer." "What if we run into that Tommy kid again out there?" Alex asked, voice low and wary. Jake rolled his eyes big, like it was all a bad movie playing out, and Alex kicked himself mentally for letting these dumb jitters get under his skin so bad. "All right, enough of this crap," Alex thought, shaking his head to clear it. "I'm the one who dragged Jake up here, and now I'm spooking us both with this nonsense for no reason." "You're right," he said out loud, clapping Jake on the shoulder with a forced grin. "I'm being stupid because last night just threw me off, that's all. Let's do this right." They headed back to the house, digging into their fishing gear, sorting rods and lures carefully, and steering the chatter away from the day's weirdness entirely. By late afternoon, they were ready, so they grabbed some coffee in chipped mugs and threw together turkey sandwiches before hauling their stuff down to Lake Hudson. The sun was still hanging low, painting the pine tops gold across the water as they shoved the little rowboat off the dock and paddled out into the calm, glassy lake. Jake cast his line with a flick of his wrist, and Alex let his mind drift back to kid summers chasing fireflies, splashing water at Jenny from down the road, her squealing as he soaked her with a bucket from the lake like a little terror. He got lost in those old daydreams, and time slipped by fast without him noticing. Jake nudged him, breaking the spell with a light shove. "Reel it in, man, because no fish are biting out here, and it's getting dark as hell already." They rowed back to shore, tying the boat up at the dock with a loose knot that'd hold. As they hiked back toward Pine Hollow, the houses loomed ahead, swallowed in black again since the power was out, same as last night hit them. "You seeing this crap?" Jake whispered, slowing his steps as they approached. "Yeah, I see it," Alex murmured back, voice tight with a bad feeling. They got closer, and it hit them hard because at every gate along Main Street, shadowy figures stood silent, some alone, some in twos, just staring straight ahead into nothing, creepy as all get out and then some. "Good evening, folks," Alex called out loud, trying to sound casual, his voice echoing a little in the still, heavy air. No one answered, just those dark shapes, motionless, like statues carved out of the night itself. Without saying a word to each other, they picked up the pace, strides getting longer and almost jogging by the time they hit the porch steps. Inside, with the door locked tight behind them, Alex frowned deep and long. "No dogs barking again, and you catch that?" "Same as last night, eerie as hell all over." Before Jake could answer, a massive bang shook the front door, so hard the bolt's nail popped loose and clattered to the floor loudly. Both of them jumped, hearts in their throats from the shock. "Who's out there screwing with us?" Jake yelled, voice cracking with nerves. Nothing but silence came back, sending chills racing up their spines fast. "Grab the damn lamp," Alex said, wiping sweat off his forehead with a shaky hand. "This darkness is frying my nerves bad." Jake bolted off, ducking into the living room quick, and came back fast with the kerosene lamp clutched in his hands tight. He struck a match, the little flame flaring up bright, and held it to the wick, but nothing happened because it wouldn't catch at all. "What the hell's wrong with this thing?" he growled, striking another match and trying again, frustration mounting high. Alex snatched the lamp from him, gave it a shake, and heard liquid sloshing inside. "All right." He sniffed hard, then tipped it over, splashing some on his hand to check. "This ain't kerosene because it's freaking water," he barked, holding up his wet fingers for Jake to see. Jake leaned in, sniffed too, and there was no sharp fuel smell, just plain old H2O. "Why the hell would Pete pour water in there?" Jake asked, baffled completely. Another loud crash slammed the door, rattling the frame hard. Alex lunged over, flung it wide open, and nothing but empty dark stared back at them. "Who's out there playing games?" he shouted into the night loud. Down by the gate, a shadow twitched and peeled away slow from the blackness. It started moving closer, steps deliberate and heavy on the ground. They stood there in the open doorway, dread sinking deep and clawing up their backs, some primal fear they couldn't put a name to at all. Why it had them locked up tight, they didn't know, just like they couldn't budge an inch from the spot. The figure got near enough to catch in their flashlight beams, with eyes glinting weird and unnatural, and maybe, just maybe, a low growl rumbled out, or was that their freaked-out heads filling in the blanks? Then, out of nowhere, a high-pitched yip cut through, and a scruffy little mutt shot off the porch like a bullet, charging straight at the shadow with a snarl loud. Caught off guard, the thing flinched hard, turned tail, and bolted into the dark fast, the dog tearing after it, barking its head off wildly. The kicker was that figure didn't run normal because it dropped low and scrambled off on all fours like some wild animal out there. Jake snapped out of it first, lunging to slam the door shut and throwing his weight against it, breathing hard and fast. "What in the holy hell was that, Alex?" he whispered, voice shaky as hell from the scare. Alex didn't answer right off because he was too stunned, brain spinning wild. But it wasn't that freaky shadow that hit him hardest and dug into his gut deep. It was the dog he recognized instantly. He knew that yappy, high-pitched bark in a heartbeat since it was Buster, Grandpa's old half-poodle mutt, all curls and tangled fur from years back. Little Alex used to spend hours tugging burrs outta that dog's coat after they'd tear through the woods together, chasing rabbits or just messing around by the creek near Pine Hollow. "That little mutt'd go after anything," Alex muttered, half lost in the memory as it flooded back. Angry roosters, stray cats, didn't matter one bit because he'd yap and charge like he owned the damn place every time. "Alex, you good, man?" Jake grabbed his shoulder, shaking him out of the daze and clocking the weird look on his face. "You know that dog or what from somewhere?" "Yeah," Alex said slow, voice thick with feeling. "Not just any dog, because that was Buster. He ran wild with me all over Pine Hollow when I was a kid back then. I bawled like a baby for a solid week when he died, and it hit me hard as hell." Jake blinked, processing it slow. "Wait, died? Like Tommy Ray died too? We gotta get the hell out of here." "Jake, right freaking now?" Alex said, voice tight with urgency as he snapped back. They stormed back inside, phone flashlights bouncing wild as they started cramming their bags and rucksacks with whatever they could grab. Clothes, gear, food. Didn't matter one bit. "You hear that?" Alex hissed, freezing mid-pack with a shirt in his hand. Jake stopped, ears perked up sharp. Nothing at all. Someone's out there. Man, I swear it," Alex insisted, killing his light and creeping over to the window, peering into the black outside. Jake followed, quieter now than before. Cold, sticky sweat beaded up fast because they saw them out there. Dark shapes circling the house slow, ghostly, with no faces, just blank voids where faces should have been plain as day. "Pale as death, eyes blacker than coal," Alex whispered, barely audible, breath fogging the glass as he stared. The figures pressed close, noses twitching like they were sniffing the air and hunting something alive. The guys held dead still, barely daring to breathe at all, watching those things prowl around the yard outside. "We hunker down till dawn, then we're gone," Jake breathed, voice trembling just a hair from fear. But morning didn't bring the relief they'd prayed for hard. Sure, daylight came and scattered those creepy shadows away, but a thick, soupy fog rolled in right behind it, dense as hell, choking, and blinding them to anything past a foot out there. The air outside turned wet and heavy, so thick you could damn near chew it, and breathing felt like sucking mud down. Driving was a joke since visibility zilched out to arm's length, maybe less than that even. "We can't just sit here," Alex said, staring out into the white wall of fog, hands clenched tight. "Load up the truck because we'll crawl out of this hellhole if we have to." Inch by freaking inch slow, they hauled their bags out, fumbling through the mist toward the ford and feeling their way along. "Crap, I left my phone on the table inside," Alex realized, cursing under his breath loud. "I'll run back for it, so holler when I'm coming out so I can find you in this mess." Jake nodded quick and squinted into the haze around them. Alex darted back to the house, snatched his phone off the kitchen table fast, and stepped out onto the porch, boots thudding hard. "Jake!" he shouted into the murk loud and clear. "Over here, man!" Jake's voice cut back through, faint but there in the fog. Alex started toward it, just a few yards from the truck, when he froze solid in his tracks. A figure stood ahead, back to him, barefoot in muddy work boots, some faded plaid shirt hanging loose, head cocked to one side all wrong and not moving a muscle. "Jake!" Alex whispered, barely a sound at all. No answer came back. "Son!" Jake called again, closer now than before. The figure twitched hard, straightened up slow, but didn't say a damn word to him. "Talk to me, man." Jake's voice came again, sharper and worried now through the fog. Alex stayed mute because too many late-night zombie flicks flashed through his head. Jerky staggers, blank stares, that endless hunger haunting him. Fear locked his legs up tight and rooted him to the spot hard. The truck door slammed loud, so Jake was out, boots hitting the ground with a thud. "Alex, where you at?" The figure took a step forward, then melted into the fog like smoke fast. "Run, man!" Jake yelled, voice cracking sharp. A low growl rumbled out there, with footsteps thumping fast behind it. Alex spun around, bolting back toward the house, heart slamming against his ribs like a drum. A shape flickered ahead through the mist, and Alex swerved hard, sprinting blind now with no clue where he was headed anymore. He slammed full tilt into a rotting picket fence, boards cracking under him loud, and went down hard, sharp pain stabbing through his knee bad. Blood soaked through his jeans fast, and his knee was torn open, dark red seeping out quick. He had to find Jake, link up somehow, and get the hell out of this cursed town together before whatever was out there caught up to them. Limping bad, he scanned the fog, legs screaming with every move he made, trying to spot a sign of his buddy anywhere. Grass rustled close, too close for comfort. Alex froze up, fists balled tight and ready to swing because no way he was going down without a fight here. The sound got louder, nearer, and then a shaggy muzzle popped out of the haze. It was Buster, tongue lolling, eyes bright as ever. "Buster!" Alex croaked, voice breaking as tears stung his eyes hard. The dog paused, cocked its head curious, then lunged at him, licking his face like crazy and whining with pure joy loud. Alex laughed through the shock, half sobbing, running his hands through that familiar curly fur, while the little mutt wiggled like it had never been happier in its life. "Buster, buddy, I need to find Jake," Alex said, half laughing, half sure the dog got him somehow deep down. Buster yipped sharp, darted a few steps off, then glanced back, saying, "Come on, this way clear as day." Alex hauled himself up, grimacing as his busted knee throbbed bad, and hobbled after, leaning hard on his good leg to keep going. The dog waited up ahead, patient as hell for him, guiding him through the blinding white soup of fog. Every twig snap, every rustle in the haze made Alex flinch hard, nerves frayed raw, but he kept pushing and trusted that yappy little mutt with everything he had left in him. Buster stopped short at a sagging old shed and plopped down right by the door, tail thumping the dirt loud. Alex limped up, pressed his ear to the weathered wood, and heard dead quiet inside at first. "Jake!" he whispered, barely audible through the fog. "Alex, that you?" came a hoarse hiss from within, followed by a clatter of junk shifting fast. Jake had barricaded himself in their good and shoved stuff aside to crawl out slow. He popped up, eyes wide, and locked on Buster first thing he saw. "She led me straight here," Alex said, still catching his breath from the trek. "No damn way I'd have found you in this mess without her because she's a freaking miracle right now." "What the hell happened to your leg?" Jake asked, clocking the blood soaking Alex's jeans, dark and sticky all over. "Smashed it on a fence running blind," Alex grunted, wincing as he shifted weight off it. "We're outta here, man, and gotta go now no matter what. Fog's too thick, so we can't see crap," Jake shot back, shaking his head hard. "It might not clear up at all ever. This place is screwed up because I don't even know if it's real anymore, but it feels real as hell, and I can't wrap my head around it fully. Walking's a death trap since we'd stumble right into those things. Truck's our best shot, but driving in this? We're screwed either way." He kicked at the dirt, frustrated as hell with the mess. Right then, Buster bolted off and vanished into the fog without a sound at all. "Buster!" Alex called, voice cracking with worry loud. A faint bark answered back, soft but clear through the haze, and then she popped out again, yipping low like a signal. "She's leading us somewhere," Jake said, squinting after her in the white. She barked once more, sharper, then melted back into the white fast. They followed slow, ears straining for her next sound and picking their way through the haze carefully. "I cried my damn eyes out when you died, girl," Alex murmured, a sad little smile tugging at his lips as he remembered that awful week when he was a kid losing his best pal forever. Buster's eyes locked with his for a second, like she got every word he said. Then she licked his hand quick and darted off again, barking soft, saying this way. They scrambled into the truck, Jake behind the wheel, Alex shotgun, engine rumbling low as they sat tight and waited. Another yip cut through, so they rolled forward slow, blind as bats, following her sounds meter by meter through the thick white nothing all around. Then, a loud, sharp bark rang out, clear as a bell in the fog. Jake slammed the gas hard, tires spinning wild, and the truck lurched hard over some unseen rut, bouncing them in their seats rough. And just like that, they punched through fast. The fog split open wide, and Route 441 stretched out ahead, empty, clear, asphalt gleaming under a weak morning sun above. Jake hit the brakes, and they piled out quick, staring back at the wall of white behind them, solid as a barrier now. It felt like a glass pane stood between them and that hellhole, two worlds cut clean apart from each other. Buster! Alex yelled into it, voice raw with feeling. A bright, happy bark shot back, close but somehow miles away too in there. Alex took a step forward, gut twisting bad, wanting to dive back in, find her, and drag her out of that nightmare town for good because he needed her with him always. Jake grabbed his arm hard, yanking him back before he could cross over into the fog. That's her world, man. Where she's alive in there and running free. She ain't in ours anymore, he said, voice steady but soft with understanding. She got us out, so she's good now. She saved our asses, Alex said quiet, throat tight with emotion. She's fine there with no danger for her, Jake pressed, firm now to make it clear. Another cheerful bark echoed out, backing him up like she was nodding along with them. See? Jake grinned, clapping Alex's shoulder light. She's with me on this one fully. He tugged Alex back toward the truck, turning them toward the open road where green fields rolled out wide ahead. They climbed in, pulled onto the highway, and started rolling south, tires humming steady on Route 441 under them. Through the rear view, Alex caught a glimpse, and a small white shape darted through the thinning mist back there. It was Buster's curly fur flashing for a second only. Her sharp, joyful bark rang out loud and cut through the morning quiet, like she was shouting to her weird, alive world that she was back where she belonged, safe and sound as ever.